first thing I said today is we need to figure out in the text where Blavatsky, or better said, where the voice of the silence give us the hint. Who are those few mystics? What is that mystic characteristic? Are we there yet? Are we part of that? Do we want to make the commitment to do that? So part of the task in studying the voice of the silence is to figure out what does it mean. This is for those few mystics, because you're going to find answers there. And what are the answers? This is our task also, besides everything we're learning. We agree? So you have a homework to find the text, in the text, and some of you are very familiar with the text, and to bring some examples of what is, and of course we need to be in her mindset. What does it mean, mystic? So how long do you need to do this? We're going to spend the next 3 days together. It's good to have homework so you can concentrate. So would you like a 10-year plan? 3 lifetimes? Or do you like that idea that in the evening we look for some text that is about those few mystics and some answers that we can do? Yes? And we could even meditate on them, have a moment of quietness. And if you don't come up with any, it's okay, I'll do it. You know, I'll come up with some. But try, right? Do that effort. You know, she wrote that for those few. And I see a bunch of few, including me and Susan. We are a lot of few here. Enrico, you're a sure thing.
Oh yes, no doubt.
Sure thing.
Like the City Italiano.
Yeah. You're there. You are there. And you hear the mystic sounds?
It's Ingmar.
Oh, that's Ingmar. Oh yeah, it's a sure thing too. It's a sure thing. The next aspect of the voice of the silence is about the mystic sounds. Remember the idea of the mystic sounds is she describes them, but then she says you have to merge them all in one. You remember that? She described mystic sounds, but you have to merge them all in one. At the very beginning, when the old one. Can you see that? Can you? Therefore, before we get there, and I don't like the old English, you know, thou, you know what I mean? I don't know if, again, your translation in Dutch, if you kept that old English style. Before thou setst thy foot. It's so easy to say before you put your foot there. You know, you just step on it. But you know, this is all English meant to be maybe Shakespearean, Victorian. But you know, I'm from Venezuela. You know, it's like old English. But there's a beauty. My wife says there is a beauty there. I believe that there is a beauty. But I cannot read that stuff. It's so difficult. Too many S and T's and things. You know. But it's important to know that there is an instruction that before you set your foot upon the ladder, which ladder is that? You remember the ladder? The what? Antakarana is the inner ladder. But in the slides, anybody else? The path, right? Within is the Antakarana, and yes. But describe it as an outside is the path. So And this is the point that don't lose sight of this while you study the voice or you teach the voice. Some instructions are to walk on the road towards the path. Remember, before you enter the path, before you step on the ladder. Don't lose that, because if you confuse that, well, you could get confused, right? You confused it. So there are different instructions. Enjoy that. Enjoy the instructions of the road and the path. Instructions on the path are virtues, are monsters, demons, are difficult walkway. The path is extremely difficult. The road, it's impossible. But the path is like, oh my God. But so before you set your foot in the ladder upper rung, that means the last one, right? And which paramita is the last one? Starts with a P, ends with an A. Prajna. Easy, Prajna. If you forget Prajna, the P, Plato. Just as easy. You have mnemotechnics. Plato. Right? Plato. You know Plato, right? Or what in Dutch is Platon or Plato? Plato? Plato. Easy. Plato. Right? You don't like Plato? Pythagoras. Plotinus. Proclus. There's plenty peace. Right? Okay. So, Prajna Paramita. Before you set thy foot upon the ladder's upper rung, Prajna Paramita. You got to feel that Prajna Paramita because you step out of the Yoga Sutras. You are in the esoteric path now. The other was the open path. Very important. You're going to see that in detail in a few minutes. When the voice says, are you in the 4 dhyanas or in the paramitas? 4 dhyana, of course you are in the dhyana, which is the path of the Yoga Sutras, or you are in the paramitas. So either or, remember, don't forget that. 8 angas, 8 stages, and 7 paramitas. They want you to get in that dhyana, move to prajna. Don't forget that. That's very important. And when you are deciding, in that moment, you are just about to become an adept, and you are in that dhyana, don't forget, wisdom is coming based on compassion. We're going to see that, right? And when you cross that path from one to another, and you remember that, don't forget the last word. Thank you, Martin. Don't forget it, okay? Thank you, Martin. That was very good. I got it. So this is what it's teaching us. Before you move in the ladder upper rung, Prajna Paramita, the ladder of the mystic sounds, you have to hear the voice of our inner God, the higher self. You know what the higher self is? The highest aspect within us, higher principles, right? Atma Buddhi, yeah. Higher self, Manas. That's why when you get confused, always keep the key to theos. In fact, you can just cut this, carry it in your pocket, right? If you're thinking about it, you know, higher self is Atma, the inseparable ray of the universal one self. You see higher self. So before you hear the voice of your inner God, the higher self, Atma. Isn't that cool? It's all here. In 7 manners. So this is a mystical moment. Do you agree? Why? Well, she told us it's a mystic sounds. Right? Mystic sound, mystical moment. What does it mean, mysticism, and in this respect? Mystic sounds. We have to deal with the word mystic. Blavatsky is pushing us. She selected that word. We got to know that. What what do you get in your mind when you read the word mystic sounds? If you don't get an idea, use the negative. A non-mystic sound is this. Use Platonic way. Clean it. What is not, right? And leave what it is. This is one of the Plato ways. Use what is not, right? And then you keep what it is. So what is a mystic sound? Different from jazz. You like jazz? Rock and roll, whatever. But what's different? What's a mystic sound? Anybody? Yes.
Well, I think it's a sound you cannot hear.
A sound that you cannot hear. Okay. Okay. An inner sound. That's what. Anybody else? Yes.
I think it's the sound when you sound and you do mantras. It can help to go on a higher level, and then there you hear angel singings.
Oh.
But I heard that's also an illusion.
But you have to kind of, it is or it's not?
For me it was
mystic sound.
It was a mystic sound.
Okay,
I felt silence.
Okay.
And I listened to it and it opened my heart.
Perfect. So that's a mystic sound. Yeah, let's stay positive. Everybody's going to say it's an illusion anyways. But and it's all true too. But for you it was a mystic moment. Else?
Perhaps leading directly to truth.
Aha, okay. Leading directly through the sound. We're talking about mystic sounds. Yes, okay. Anybody else? Did you wanted to say something? Yes, or no?
Yes.
I felt you wanted to say something. But,
it's nice what Al said. So that means if it leads directly to truth, a mystic sound is not a mysterious sound.
oh, okay. What is a mysterious sound then?
That you don't understand, whereas truth you understand.
I see. So there is illumination.
Yeah.
In a mystic sound. There is a realization, illumination, union.
Yes.
I'm trying to elaborate on what you're saying. Okay. And a mysterious sound is still veiled.
Yes.
It could be a mystic sound, but it's veiled. Okay.
It seems to me, along what Vin was saying, a mystic sound, it's like that idea of a truth realized. We have that expression, like a bell that becomes crystal clear. Like, a chime, a moment, a sounding of a realization of a truth. A sound that it's not heard.
Okay. And anybody else has an opinion on sounds? And I know you all have an opinion on sound, right? So we have two more.
For me it might be an inspiration that leads to a new insight.
Okay, so the mystic part is inspiration, insight. Insight into what?
A new path or a new part of the path.
Okay, an expansion into more on the path. Okay, thank you, thank you. Search all the eyes are on you.
I would say a sound or vibration which is not directed to the lower self.
Okay.
So it's appealing to something higher, so that if we open to these kind of sounds, we are drawn to what is asking us to read.
What we're asking, the last word, to?
Asking us to read.
Okay, okay. Thank you. Anybody else? Everybody knows sounds. Music is very important, right, in our life. I think that's true for everybody. The secret doctrine describes in a way how the sound came into being. If you remember Cosmogenesis, in stanza 3, number 10, when it says, Father, Mother, spin a web, where the upper is spirit, the lower is matter. Those two substances, spirit and matter, are Swabhavat. And then that web, spin a web, you know what web, right? Like a spider web, right? A network, a pattern. That web is seven-folded. How do we know that? The law. The law unveils, manifests the world in seven. Therefore, that's the first seven stream. And Subha Rao explained that the light of the Logos, moving through those seven layers, play a sound. You hear it? Synchronicity. You got to make use of the moment. So the light of the Logos, you know what I mean by the light of the Logos? The first moment of emanation. This is very important. It's light. That light is also a vibration, and therefore it's a sound. And that's the first sound of the universe, when those seven planes, and for theosophy, plane is a field of activity, a physical, pranic, for, seven principles, right? Astral, karma, etc. Seven fields of activity. And then this is a mystic soundboard. You know soundboard? Like the guitar is the board, is where everything happens. So that's the mystic sound in the universe, the very first that is heard. And if you listen really well with your inner mystical hearing, you will hear the Logos saying, let there be light. Let there be a manifested universe, like in the Bible. It's meant to be symbolical of that moment, right? Very beautiful moment. Let there be. Yes, that's anthropomorphically that. So mystic sounds. By the way, as you know, they are not really the answer. The answer is in all of us. There's no one answer here. Nobody say right or wrong, right? Mystic for you is different from mystic from other. But yet, there must be a transcendental reality of the mystic, when you use the word mystic. We agree? Transcendental, sacred. And it has to bring you new news, good news, truthful news, beautiful news, something from above, from below to above. It has to push you up, and that's mysticism. Therefore, in number 50, when the 6 sounds, and this is about the 7 sounds, right, are slain, at the master feet are laid, then the pupil merge into the one, becomes that one, lives therein. That's very mystical. We agree? So this is one answer of what is a mystical life. When all that is merged, union, yoga, the sounds are one. It's a very transcendental, majestic, illuminating moment. That merging, the pupil merges into the one. What is that one? When you read, you have to imagine what you're reading. Why you need to imagine? Because you're not illuminated. You don't know it. So you need to start, like Plato said, first imagine it, then think about it, then contemplate it, then merge with it. You see? So imagine what you see it and start forcing yourself to get to dharana, to concentrate it to concentration with the word, with the idea. In the inner group instructions, she gives the famous example of the triangle and the three. You remember that? No, that's fine too. Where she say, concentrate first on the triangle, on the three, they have all kind of problems, and so on. These are in the inner group teachings, very important, because she's explaining what the voice of the silence is requiring for us to do. So study the inner group teaching with the voice of the silence. You will find incredible, a lot of answers. And that's very important, because this is where we're going. We need to grow in divine wisdom. Then, from the heart, that power shall rise into the sixth, remember what we said? The middle region between the eyes. When it becomes the breath of the one soul, the voice that filleth all, the master voice. So that one sound becomes the master voice, and that's the sound that fills all. There are no words to express that. Isn't that true? One sound that fills all. Imagine that mystical moment where you have in your soul the sound of the universe, the sound of truth, the sound of beauty, sound of justice. They're all there. And you are able to understand it and comprehend it. That is a moment that is beyond words. And if you are like Plotinus or Proclus or Plato, you are able to describe it. Isn't that something? Yes.
Is this what is not...
Yeah, can you wait a little patience, remember? It's a virtue.
I wondered, is this the moment that Rumi called, and you are the soul of the soul of the soul of the soul?
Well, I don't know Rumi. If that's what you think it is, it's a sure thing. Yes.
You are the soul.
But I don't know Rumi. You know that part? The Rumi.
Rumi is one of the mystics of.
No, I understand. I know who Rumi is, but I don't know that poem that he wrote. So, but yeah, I think if he means that, and you got it like that, probably it's that.
Okay.
Because Rumi is very transcendental, right? So I think he meant like that, the way you're saying.
I think I understand.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So the breath of the one soul, the voice that filleth all, right? And that is a moment that's beyond the physical. That's why it's mystical. And we cannot, unless you have that experience, you can't express it. Do we agree? And how do you express it if you have that experience? How do you paint that if you're a painter? An experience that one word, one voice that fills all. That you are so illuminated that you are eternity. You are truth. You are everything. What a mystical moment. If we are not real mystics or adepts, that moment is like this. Isn't that true? Because why? Our mind says, wow. Oh, look what happened to me. This is very impressive. Let me tell someone else. I had a moment of no, I don't believe it. so this is human, right? This is human. But we all have on and off flashes like that. You all have. Remember? You all have. And Plato told us that we have that moment when we see things that we call beautiful things. We fall in love and we hear the music of the stars. Isn't that incredible? When we have that celestial love, that beauty captures our soul. And for one moment, we're one with it. This is the one with it. There cannot be two ones. It's all one. So that oneness is that. You capture your soul. It's a very beautiful moment. This is what we need to concentrate when we want to understand mysticism. It's about oneness. It's about being and experiencing one. Because we have no divisions, we have no fragmentation, we don't have you and me. Everything is one, and that is a mystical moment. Now, if you say everything is nothing, it's the same thing, because the one disappears into nothingness, right? Like a Buddhist. I was talking to someone about Buddhism at lunchtime. It's the same moment. It's the nothingness. It's the same. It's a beautiful moment. Do you have any comments or something to? Yes. Thank you.
It's me again.
Again.
It seems to have to do with the art of listening.
Okay.
Inner listening. Is it?
Yes. Isn't like the other side of the coin. If you don't listen to the one sound, you are fragmented into the many sounds. Is that what you're going to?
Yeah, but...
Say more, please.
The one is also the many. In the one is also the many.
Yes.
So
all of it. Merge them all in the one.
Yeah, yeah.
Merge them all.
And the other way around.
And break them all in.
I don't know how to say it.
Yeah.
I have no words to say it, but I feel that when there is inner attunement, listening is maybe, no, there is an inner attunement to everything around. And that's what I wanted to say this morning. It has also to do with dharana.
Correct,
okay.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that's your experience.
Yeah.
And that's very important, the way you're describing it, because you're describing it first to yourself. Your mind needs to understand your experience with the words that you can express it. And that's why it's very difficult to share mystical experiences. Because, even if we have the same experience, we will describe it differently. Isn't that true? This is the human problem with the mind. We can only use the vocabulary that we know and the ideas that we know. But in this moment, the 6 sounds are merged into one. That was the voice of the silence. Now, there are many experiences, whether it's that way or a different way. The end result in mysticism, absorption into the one. Right? That's absorption into the one. The way that is described the mystic sounds is something that I always wanted to put it on a tape, capture it. Physical sounds, because these are physical symbols, right? Have you heard the nightingale sound? Yeah? You get a nightingale and you say, sing to me, come on, sing to me. But in the internet, I heard several, and it's very sweet, very nice. So look in the internet, and then the second is the symbol, right? The third is the ocean sprite. That's the one that everybody loves, the kids. Kids go to the ocean and listen to that one. The fourth is the chant of the Vina. I search in YouTube a lot of Vina songs and etc. Why this is important, the fourth? Because the voice of the silence says the students of the Guru are like the Vina. sound. So this is extremely important. It's like there is a harmony in the Vina that ties us all together. Vina becomes important in a group. So what I would like to do is to, in our study group, you all invited Thursday evenings in Los Angeles to study with us. We have a group at home. You know, you go Friday, Wednesday, you come back Friday. Actually, they did it one day, right? I mean, it's so easy. So, well, they stay a week, but 2 weeks. But it's important, the Vina, because Blavatsky used that, you know, she chose the translation, the words in the sections, to tell us that there is something magical in the Vina sound that is like the disciples. Harmony among the disciples. I haven't experienced that yet, but it's in the voice. I think it's in fragment 3. But there's something there that is very impressive. So experience that. Anything of the voice for me is so important. The 5th is a bamboo flute, right? Anybody has played bamboo flute? You did? Tell us the 5th experience. The 5th sound.
Sorry, it's an inner sound.
Let's see.
An inner sound.
So the 5th is like a bamboo flute. That's your instrument? You play the bamboo flute?
It's like this.
Oh, like the reeds in the Peru, Bolivia, the Kenya.
That's also the wooden, but that's not bamboo.
That's not bamboo, that doesn't count. Bamboo or no bamboo. It's like it is or it's not. We're talking about bamboo. But so the reeds, like in the Andes, right? Is that bamboo? Okay. Okay. Anybody has another bamboo story? No? Okay. So we don't have bamboo players? Okay. You bamboo player? No. And that's the 5th sound. Then it changes into the 6th, a trumpet blast. You know, the sounds are so fun, so much fun, because everybody has like it's like a mystery. It's like, we don't know, what is she saying? But there is a progression that is very important there. We need to find it. We need to find it. There is something beyond words that she's telling us, and for me it's like an analogy. It's like, right? It's not a bamboo flute, but it's like. And like for Plato is analogy. It's like this. There is something in the nature of that sound, by that thing, that reveals the inner nature of that stage. So there's something to do with that. Now, a trumpet blast is easy to relate, right? Isn't that true? Because it's very easy to do. You get a trumpet and you blow on it. And you blast the neighbors, you blast yourself, and you say, wow, they all won. But you see the analogy, you get into the point that the sound mutes all the sounds. I think there is something like that. It's not that you playing trumpet, you know, in the street to get illumination. It's like there is a sound in nature, in the occult side of nature, that will not allow, will swallow other sounds. You see what I'm saying? So it's not like a trumpet. It's like a trumpet idea of a trumpet. And then the last one is the rumbling of a thundercloud, which swallows all the other sounds. They die, and they're heard no more. Thundercloud, that is really a big sound. Huh? You have good thunders here? Yes? And it roars, right? Okay, thunder. and the thunderbolts in the hands of Zeus, Jupiter, right? That is the idea. I'm sorry, I didn't want to point at you. Sorry, you went like, so that is the idea. The logos, Zeus, third logos, with his full thought, you know. I mean, it's just the vehicle of manifestation. He's going to manifest the universe based on the divine plan in his mind, in Mahat. That is a mystical moment, right? So, how else have you explained this in your lectures? I know many of you has explained this moment. Any of you want to share how you have explained in the past the 7 sounds for the benefit of all of us? Anybody? Anybody? No? Yes. Don't be shy. We won't laugh. This is a very good environment. Will you? No? Have you ever explained this? Never. Okay. Okay. Herman, have you explained the 7 sounds? 7 mystic sounds? With a Fourier? We all have a little bit, right? I mean, we have tried. Yeah, Johanna?
There's only one thing.
Yes.
The sevens.
The sevens with the thundercloud. When you read theological text about when Manvantara ends and Pralaya begins, there is the sounds of thunder. That's the only link I can lay.
Interesting.
Yes. But all the others, I was always irritated because I didn't understand why a trumpet, and I don't like trumpets, yes, why that would say a 6th sound of my inner higher self. And I couldn't see the link between that.
And that is a problem, isn't that true? That you're rebelling. Me too.
The only thing that I can say about it is that I can think about it is that each moment or each level or each progression has its own, keynote or tone. That sounds so obvious, but she takes such care to give them such special sounds and tones. But then when it comes time for the realization of the unity, when one has absorbed how you'd say the stage, the lesson, the insight of the level, they're all integrated.
I think that's a good word.
In this very energetic moment of a thundercloud. That you can relate to more, but that's the only thing really specifically. Of course, I haven't spent that much time, but just that there's that special note on each level. That's all.
Thank you. And yes. Follow up.
In fact, we never gave so much attention to those sounds because one of our members was in a kind of meditation group where they tried to hear within themselves bells. And yes, she was successful, she heard bells, but when that happened, she couldn't turn them off again. And that was very, yes, and that's the danger of meditating on sounds. Please do the 3rd fragment, concentrate on character. That's
interesting. Yeah.
Maybe I can come back to your question about Fourier and the second sound. Yeah, I had to think a little bit. What happens there is that they are in another phase. So that means they damp out all the other sounds. And that is what we call sometimes anti-sound. So that is what you can do. You can generate a sound that absorb the other ones. Contradict them, you can say.
That's very good, yes. Thank you. And on the back, Henrik.
well, I might say something completely wrong, but I can see that the first 6 sounds are coming through a medium.
Okay.
I mean, they're filtered by something, whereas the last one is just a natural sound. Because the first one is, you know, through the voice of Nightingale, the second one, a musical instrument, the third, it is filtered by a shell, so it's not completely natural, but it's a resonance.
Right.
And then you have musical instruments, and the last one is just direct sound.
I see. Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, else.
I was in the European school several years ago, and it was Erica who tried to put these sounds on tape, or it was an awful experience. it was not successful.
Right.
And the other remark I wanted to say, you were talking about the third, what was the stage of the pupil? It was the fourth.
The fourth, the Vina.
And the Vina. And that's so interesting because it's exactly in the middle of the 7.
Yeah.
So that was because as manos, it's a turning point where humans have the possibility to go downstairs or to lift themselves up.
That's very true.
So this connection, well, I saw that.
Thank you. Thank you.
I want to add that the trumpets in the concert hall, they often put it out of the orchestra behind the doors, and then they play. The dirigent is before the orchestra, that they have to use the movie to let play the trumpets. And in Mahler, I think in Wagner, they do that.
Thank you. Yes.
I'm wondering, are we not taking the text too literal?
Yeah.
In terms, is it not a symbolic?
Yeah.
Yes, because she said it's like.
It's like, I mean,
it's like.
These are aspects of consciousness.
Yes, yeah,
right. So not instruments or whatever.
But there is a relationship when she said it's like. It's like means it's an analogy, it's not as exactly one-to-one. It's as this sound. So there is a scale there. What's very interesting, yes, it's not literal.
Like the cave, yeah.
Yeah, like the cave, exactly. It's never literal. What's very interesting is religious people in mystical experience, they all describe it with sound. The choir, angelical choir, the Gandharvas, always describe it in sounds. And when you see the masters, the painters, and they paint the scale of heaven, all the angelical kingdoms, like when they use a pseudo-Dionysius, they all have musical instruments. They all have sounds in religious experience. That is so interesting. I'm fascinated by that. That's why I love the topic. It's very impressive. But she says it's like. It's like. So it's not like we need to do it like that, but it's like. And there is a progression to the point that there is only one sound, like you said, integrates them. Integrates them. Yes. Yeah, it's yeah.
You showed just another page before, so I don't know if you can turn back to that one.
You remember the topic?
I don't know. You told me you only can go how to go forward, but
I only know how to go forward. Is this one?
No, it's about the 7 sounds. Yes, because you put
This one?
No,
This one? This one?
No, you have to put one back. This is it. Yes.
Ah, perfect.
No,
it's not it.
Met de haar met de rug. Yeah.
For me, what it triggered in me was like these sounds are not words, and words are filled with the mind, and the sounds are going to the more to the mystic sound, you know, not the word area. And 97 is very important for me because the Nightingale is this sweet voice. And then you put down like 97, the pupil must regain a child state to go to the inner hearing. So
right. Interesting, huh? There is also an interesting study of trances, mediumship, voodoo, and all that with sounds. So sounds are extremely powerful. So be careful, like she says, of playing with sounds when you don't know what you're doing. It puts you in an altered state of consciousness too. And if you don't have control over that, it could be troublesome. Yet, we, with this knowledge, we can guide people somehow. When they come to us, we can tell them don't do anything. Or we can go and tell them, you can study here and see if there is something there to relate to. In a way, we have a responsibility with the voice of the silence and all our esoteric teachings, and to guide people, right? They want to know more, they have experiences, and that's what I'm dealing with this also. In other texts, yes, I'm sorry. Break? No, 2 more minutes. You can look in the internet, and there are texts where Blavatsky and others said that ancient text talks about mystic sounds, right? With some progression very similar to the voice of the silence. So you can look for them, and what you do is you go to Google Books, you know Google Books, right? And type mystic sounds, and then you get ancient texts that they scanned, like they say, and finally he hears the great mystic sound Om, right? In others, the great mystic sounds, there was like a trumpet here in one of these and so on, right? The humming of a bee. Now, if I hear the humming of the bee, I probably would run, or a mosquito, you know, this is something you don't like. Here's the bima and the flute. You see that? So it's common in mysticism to have those mystic sounds. So this is 40 minutes. Let's take 10 minutes now. Thank you. Let's go back to number 69 and see if we can see ourselves in that path, in the road to the path. So this is the one that tells us the story of fragment 1, in my opinion. It's a long one. 69 is my favorite, of course. And it gives me like a complete picture of the road, of the path, and me. I see myself in it. Susan is going to read it slowly, please. And again, I want you to see it, to feel it, right? It's your story. You are there somewhere. in that road to the path. And Siri wants me to search for something. Just 1 second. Doesn't understand. You got that? No. Okay. So see the story and see where you are. See yourself on the road, on the path.
There is but one road to the path. At its very end alone, the voice of the silence can be heard. The ladder by which the candidate ascends is formed of rungs of suffering and pain. These can be silenced only by the voice of virtue. Woe then to thee, disciple, if there is one single vice thou hast not left behind. For then the ladder will give way and overthrow thee. Its foot rests in the deep mire of thy sins and failings. And ere thou canst attempt to cross this wide abyss of matter, thou hast to lave thy feet in waters of renunciation. Beware, lest thou shouldst set a foot still soiled upon the ladder's lowest rung. Woe unto him who dares pollute one rung with miry feet. The foul and viscous mud will dry, become tenacious, then glue his feet unto the spot, and like a bird caught in the wily fowler's line, he will be stayed from further progress. His vices will take shape and drag him down. His sins will raise their voices like as the jackals laugh and sob after the sun goes down. His thoughts become an army and bear him off a captive slave.
Thank you. Thank you. So when you feel that you are stuck, that there is no progress in you, or a friend, or someone who knows, or a co-worker, or someone who comes to you and says, I'm so stuck, I'm just nailed here. There is some useful things here. Do you agree? Because this is the story that if we understand what drags us down and nails us on the spot and why we cannot see the light. The word that is used in the voice is vices. His vices will take shape and drag him down. Do you see that? And what is a vice? What are those things that keep us stuck? You know what the word stuck, right? Can't move. In the moment that we are stuck, what happens? If we don't move forward, we start going in depression. We just start sinking. And when we start sinking, there is no energy, no hope, no light. And life becomes so heavy that people even commit suicide. Imagine, all our life, you know, is to live, to be alive, every instinct, everything we have. And we lose that. And it could be because we're doing something against that will, the will of life. And it's driving us to a point of no hope. That cannot be. Or a friend, or a family, right? I had a couple of friends who committed suicide, and after that, I kind of, not blaming myself, but why I didn't see that? Why were my friends and never came to me and said, I don't see the light. What happened to me? Where was I? You know what I mean? This happens to everybody every day. So many people commit suicide. So many people go to alcohol and drugs and depression, and there is no hope. And there must be something in that life that lost the sight, the purpose. And our task in this world of theosophy, divine wisdom, if we want to be on the secret path, on the path of compassion, we got to open our eyes to that, right? We cannot save the whole world, but at least our friends and family. Isn't that true? At least minimum. Who touch our, life. And I want to hear your comments on this. Anybody? Yes. But you have to wait for the microphone. You want to record that. Thank you.
My experience is I had 3 people in my life who decided to suicide.
Commit suicide. Yes.
Commit suicide. It didn't was successful, and I stood beside, and I couldn't help them.
Isn't that something?
And it felt so painful.
Correct.
And then I asked myself, why could I not stand beside them to help?
Right.
And after that, I get so restless and I felt so hopeless. And then I go through a path of dying myself. And it was so painful. And then I understood how they felt. And now I can stand beside them.
Isn't that something? What a beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you. Anybody else? So what is a vice? What is that in nature that we do and we get stuck? And that's the first step of something really bad in the wheel of life. What is a vice? How do you define a vice? And you can use the internet, I guess. Vice? Okay. Is vice the opposite of a virtue? You say yes. Anybody? If there is a virtue, there is a vice by the law? No? Yes. Lack of virtue, a vice. Okay. Vice. Anybody else? So, therefore, we need to study vices. Why? Because we have to recognize them in us. Yes? How do we know we have vices if we don't know what a vice is? By the way, I know you all know what vices are. And I know that at 3:15 is hard to share. Maybe with more coffee you could, and chocolate. But I know you all know what vices are. Isn't that true? You can make a big list of vices. In fact, I guarantee you have more vices in a list than virtues. Right? Well, not in your life, but you can list more vices than you can list virtue. Try one day, right, at home. Sit down and list vices, what you shouldn't do, and what you should do, the do's and the don'ts. And I think the don'ts are larger, right? In the Egyptian Book of the Dead, they have 42 vices that they cannot do. The 42 negative confession. I didn't do this, I didn't do that. 42 you have to memorize. To repeat that after that. 42 vices. So vices and virtues. At first sight, they look one opposite to the other. Isn't that true? But I think in philosophy it's not so. Aristotle, if I remember, explaining Plato, said no, a vice is not the opposite of virtue. The vice is in heaven, so to speak. A virtues, thank you. A virtue is in heaven, and vices are on earth as lack of, excess of. For instance, if, let's call it goodness, lack of goodness is a vice, excess of goodness. What is excess of goodness? Well, if I do so much for my kid that I suffocate, don't go to the street, don't let me walk you. I suffocate him so much that Igmar is going to say, leave me alone, you know. So we have to, so that's what one idea of vice, so vice and virtue, right? And a vice pendulate from, oh, you don't want me to care about you? Don't care about you, right? Oh, you want me, you see, we go from one wall to another wall, two opposites of one middle path of the perfection, of the excellence. So, what is a vice? And we talk in terms of dharma, transgression of dharma, transgression of a natural law. Can we say that? A vice. For instance, Plato spoke of friendship, right? In the Republic and many dialogues. And if you violate the trust of a friend, bad news. Bad news. And I know that many people who violated the trust of friends, they become depressed. Really depressed. They're so stuck. They are not trusted. They lose friends. They lose harmony. Isn't that true? So we really need to see in ourselves when we feel stuck, what are those, and because there are so many, we cannot describe them, but the idea of what are those that have taken shape and drag us down to the point that they became an army and we are captive and we cannot move on. Very interesting. You have a thought? Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to react on that idea of Aristotle of virtues being like a middle path between a lack of and an excess of. For me, personally, I thought about that, and I thought I see it more as if you take the paramita as patience, it can go on till infinity. I mean, there's never, if I think, for instance, as these silent watchers, that they have patience for whole manvantaras. So I don't see that there can be a really excess of patience. It's more, I think that if you take it more personally, if you take it like you place yourself in the center, I have to be patient. And then you're trying to go to be patient, but you have a personal connection to it. Then it turns into a vice. So if it's more universal, if you are patient with anybody, everything, then it's really like what you told, the virtue in heaven, like more, the endless part.
Right. So it becomes for you like a personal also experience with some of the virtues.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And you have to use some intelligence in it, in a way. Can you be patient in something that you should not be patient?
Well, I think it's sort of, as long as you're still thinking, I have to be patient, or you have this sort of voice in yourself, patient, be patient, etc. You're not it. It's not, you have to sort of forget about it, and that it becomes sort of a natural thing.
Right. And that's the idea.
I don't say that I've reached that state, but that's more or less my understanding of it.
Yes.
And then it cannot be, it doesn't, there is no excess or something. It can go on endlessly.
No, and it's true. It's true. What I'm trying to avoid is that we use the absoluteness of saying we have to be patient, while the voice of the silence tells us you have to practice the virtues, because you are not an adept, you are not a bodhisattva yet. So in the meantime, we just practice. So how do we practice virtues? So I think we tend to confuse the absoluteness of the virtue when we talk, while we are told, practice it. To practice is to experience it. Sometimes it will be good, sometimes it won't be good, right? And in that experience we become wiser. But when you say to someone, that's not patient, of course it's not, because that's an ideal. It's a divine plan, it's a virtue, cannot be defined. Plato also told us, don't define virtues in singular. You need to recognize the virtue with your soul and not with words. Because the moment you say, look, justice is, people say, no, that's not justice. Because you have other ways to explain it. Virtues has to be contemplated. This is something that Plato stressed very careful. We got to contemplate virtues. We have to explain application. Contemplate virtues, explain application. An example is the word law. Got to concentrate on the idea of the law. Try to visualize and maintain it and contemplate the law. And then he wrote the most extensive book, The Law. The biggest book he wrote is the dialogue called The Law, which is application. So you will know when something is just by seeing it with your inner eyes. This is an adept, a golden person, an illuminator. But we have to be careful in talking in absolutes when you and me talk, in my opinion. That's just my opinion. Because we are not adepts. We need to practice it. It's and practice the paramitas. You know the line, right? It's practice the paramitas. So when we practice, we're human. So when we practice, we need to see the excess, the effect, the middle path of the Buddha, what it means. We try, you know, and we err, and it didn't work, and why did I say that? So in general, practically, we got to practice. That's my 2 points. Yes?
Just to add something on the relativeness, it reminds me of Gandhi mentioning that every human being has two windows, the one he is and the one he ought to be. And my idea personally with vices is each time you know better, you have a vice.
I like that.
So it is always relative for everybody, and everybody knows this idea, and it's no problem. But if you know better and still you do the opposite and you try to climb the ladder, then it will grow and like the army, you know.
Right. Yes.
It seems to me this is what Erwin was alluding to. When we have an experience and we reflect on it, it's almost like that one virtue that you know, subsumes them all is compassion. You know, when you're asking yourself interiorly what went wrong, and you have that feeling tone, and you realize what impatience is. And so instead of saying, I am here, I must be better, I must apply this thing called patience, it becomes something much more integrated, something based on experience, and that's becoming the virtue, not me, the separated self, trying to apply. Maybe.
The other, yes, and then we move on the subject. Thank you.
I hope I can explain it in words, but I am already some time practicing, I try practicing the virtue of compassion. And when it comes to the vices, I recognize in myself that in being compassionate, you can have it in a male way, or in a, how do you call it? You have female and male principles.
Okay.
And the male principles of compassion are more doing, are more active.
Active.
I don't know if it's true, but that's how I am.
Okay, that's how you experience.
Yes, and for me is the feminine side of compassion. It's a little difficult. There's two sides in my feeling now. It's one, but is that when you say, oh, I have to be patient, I have to do it like this, that I forget to have the compassion for my vices. So if I go to that inner compassion, in one way, on the masculine side is that I have to practice it, and the feminine side of the practicing is that I will allow myself to accept that I am still busy with my vices, and then comes the law of love, and then I get patience, and then I can act. So,
and that's the rhythm, the game of one and the other. Thank you for sharing that. Remember what the voice is telling us, that virtue will silence suffering and pain, and vices will get you stuck, and there is an army of demons attacking you. So see how that plays in your life, in your friends. The other part to explore is that virtue is the antidote and is silence, suffering and pain. We don't have time to explore that beautiful idea, but it's so beautiful that please explore it and think about it, meditate, see yourself in action when that happens. You follow me? This paragraph tells us we are walking on the road to the path. To finish this, if you allow me couple minutes, there is, yes, this one. Oops. It's not moving the way I want it. Sorry. Okay, so that's the end. The last part of the voice of the silence is the fragment 1, is the 8 stages, and she calls it stages in the voice. And the stages mimic or are based on the 8 components of the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, or the Yoga philosophy in general. You follow me? So please study that. And this is from the internet. Saved me a lot of time, right? And is the yamas, the moral code, niyamas, the personal conduct, right? Sometimes people say the do's and the don't. You see, no violence, no lying, no stealing, no waste, and so on. You see that? And what to do? The don'ts and the do's. Postures, pranayama, breathing, right? Pratyahara, control of the senses, concentration. This is the topic of the second instruction of the voice of the silence, dhyana and samadhi. And the way that Blavatsky then explains them, oops, I need you. So I have this slide here, and nothing there. You got it? Nothing. Like it. Okay, this is veiled. That part is, I don't know why it doesn't like to look at it. So interesting. So in the book, you have number 80 and 81 to tell you, because you all have the book. In 80 and 81 is the yamas, and these are the don'ts. And in the 82 and the 83 is the niyamas, the do. What's interesting here is, for instance, in stage 2, it says, unless thou hear, you cannot see. Unless you see, you cannot hear. To hear, to see is second stage. It's very cryptic. But if you tie, because at the end she's going to tie to the Yoga Sutras, so if you tie to the don'ts and the do's, you're going to realize that you need to start seeing and hearing what you do and what you don't, from the inner eyes, from the eyes of the virtuous life. Because this is the point that you need to start applying, we need to start applying some morality. When we move from the road to the path, the first thing is to make sure we integrate and transcend all the rules of the road. All the rules of the road. We got to integrate and transcend. Transcend to that, the next stage. What's interesting, if you open the book, right after 83, number 83, and you're with me with that, right? The stages, maybe you don't have all of you with numbers. If you're missing the numbers, you're stuck. But that's okay, because you can put the numbers. But you're with me in the stages at the end of fragment 2. What's interesting is the fragment 3, she chose not to talk about it. Asanas. She chose and she just left it like, nothing about that. But we have the Yoga Sutras and you can study about that. My personal, because I love to give my personal view, is on that asanas immediately the lower cities show up. Without posture, without yoga, without practice, just before the breathing, just the posture, the right, and then you're doing the do's and the don'ts and etc., cities will show up. She decided not to, the lower cities. This is my personal. In the fourth, which is pranayama, she says, this is when the disciple sees and hears, but also smells, tastes, with the eyes closed, with the ears shut. This is what she's saying, what she's saying and what we don't see is that she's using the analogy of physical senses to astral, mental, higher senses. You see? Plato's analogy. As the sun allows you to see things with your eyes, so the light of the Logos allows you to see things with your buddhi, the eye of contemplation, your soul. You see that? So not having words to express higher vocabulary, Plato and everybody else uses the physical world. So when you hear at that point that the disciples see and hear, you know that they see and hear. But what they're trying to say is, you see with your eye of intuition, with your mystical eyes. You follow me? You're seeing more. You're hearing more. And now the smell, the taste, you need to find those analogies. What does it mean in that world that you see and you hear? And so on. What's interesting in the Book of the Dead, you're going to see that the priest doing the opening of the mouth, the opening of the ear, it's just incredible magic. You've seen that with the instrument. It's a magical moment that is exactly this stage 4. Why? Now you need to remember. And on then stage 5, then you're the slayer of your thoughts. You kill all those vices and thoughts and demons beyond reanimation. And then you go to dharana. Be very careful there, remember. It is the turning point. Then comes dhyana and then samadhi. With samadhi, the voice of the silence tells us, behold, you're ready to hear the voice of the silence. And that's how it ends. In samadhi. You're ready to hear the voice of the silence. And what we're going to see later, in 2 minutes, because I'm taking your breath, later on is, if without samadhi you don't have compassion, you achieve moksha and you're done. Till the next manvantara for you. And that is the open path that everybody is welcome. What our masters want is find some few souls that are able to say, no, I'm going to renounce to that. And that is the story of the next hour. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.